So when I was 6, is when I was the first time I went to resident camp, and I was there for 3 weeks, which was like the only amount of time you could go, and I had a crazy fun time. I mean, it was like out of my mind fun, and I can't remember. It was one of the last few days, if not the last full day of camp, and my counselor Pete Griffin-Hagen and I were walking back towards the dining hall. I'm not sure if it was for a meal or whatever it was for. And he sort of just, sort of half-heartedly asked, so, are you coming back next summer? And I'm not exactly sure what my actual response was in that moment. I'm sure it was very excited, whatever I actually said. But I do remember the feeling. I remember it crystal clear because I was like, I can do this again? And I mean, I was totally hooked, right? It was like set me on my path. It was sort of started me on this cyclical journey that I feel like I have been on for 30 years, even though I'm only 20. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about, is about this journey, the story that you guys have to tell. And how are we going to tell it, and all the different pieces that go into it. Along the way, I feel like I've learned a lot. But I feel like I've learned a lot from sort of the smallest places at camp, and the smallest moments, the high fives and the smiles and the songs that we sing, and the moments on the way to the dining hall where your counselors and you folks don't even remember what you're talking about. I've learned so many things from those small spaces, that I belonged, that I was cool, that I had community, that there was tradition, there's continuity. I learned that I had family. And that's kind of what the sort of space that I want to start. I want to tell you a quick story about so I grew up at Camp Algonquin. It's a camp in northern Michigan. And I go back every year to do some training. And one of the years that I was back there, a kid came up to me and we started talking, and he asked me if he could tell me something about when I was his counselor. And I said, sure, I would, I'd love to hear. And he said, when I first came to camp, I was so nervous. I really didn't want to come. Two of my older sisters worked at camp, and we hated each other, so I thought they were going to make it miserable for me. And I got dropped off, and at the time, the way we did drop off was the parents dropped them off at the dining hall, and the kids had to sort of walk to the cabins. That was really just across the softball field by themselves. And so here he was, dragging his bag across the softball field, doing a death march, right, to the cabins. And he says, he looks up, and they sort of pointed to me, and there I am, sitting on sort of all, sat back on the porch. I'm sure I was, it was after 48 hours off, so I'm sure I was feeling chipper and ready to go, ready to receive my kids. And so I'm all sort of slouched back on the porch, and he said, I looked up at you and you look so cool. And of course I was like, well, yeah. And then he said, and then as soon as you saw me though, you sort of perked up, you had this huge smile, and you kind of bounced off the porch, and you were like, hey man, you must be Michael. And he was like, still to this very day, I had no idea how you actually knew it was me. And I was like, it's because those are the secrets that we can't reveal, right? And so he said, I invited him into the cabin, we found a space for him, and then I said something like, hey man, why don't we, throw a frisbee or whatever until the rest of the kids come. He said, to this very day, and this is something 12, 15 years later, I don't exactly know how much later it was. He said, to this very day, sometimes I think back and it was just the smile that made everything feel okay. It's just that smile that made me feel like I could keep doing it. And it's maybe just that smile that's the reason why I'm doing it today. You have impacted so many kids because you thought to stand up off the porch and smile. That to me meant so much, and it actually is exactly what I'm talking about as far as camp happens in the smallest places, right? In the smallest places. And when camp happens, I feel like we all sort of quietly change the world. And actually, I don't know, I've been to some of your camps. I know it's not so quiet. But the whole point is that we are changing the world when we're doing this. So why here? Why this conference? Why care about this particular group of people and this moment? And the reality is that, I'm not sure if you do care. I can't make you. Look, I know that's not really motivating, it's not really, inspiring. I'm sure some of the conference organizers are sort of freaking out. It's like, why is he in the first 5 minutes talking about how you don't really have to care about this conference? Because that's real talk. I just want to be very real with you guys right now. For some of you, this conference is going to turn into another pile of handouts and a bunch of ideas that sit on your desk and sort of don't do anything until next September when you're cleaning that whole space off and you see something and you're like, whoa, I wish I would have thought about that in June. But that's your challenge. Right? That's what you're here for. It's up to you in the next 2 days to figure out what you're going to take back. It's up to you to ask those questions about, sort of, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my camp? What does this mean for my journey, for my story? That's on you. Nobody can make you do that. Right? I hope you walk away with everything from this conference, because I can promise you that it's in the room. I can promise you that the ideas, the networking, your colleagues, everything is in this room. We can actually leave this conference with success. Meaning, you guys can develop, and that you can have more to dump into your journey, your story, which I think is really the experience that we're trying to give to our kids. That's what success really is. That's what I'm talking about. And I think we can move forward